like to call the meeting to order. Good afternoon and welcome to our November 28th, 22 regular meeting of Belleville. Well, it'll be December something this, so the 12th today? 12th. Yeah, December 12th, 22 regular meeting of Belleville City Council. For those watching on City streaming service or on our YouTube channel or on your TV broadcast, I would point out that the agenda and all reports are on the city website at www.belleville.ca under the agenda, minutes, and live meeting video on the left side of the screen. If you click on November or December 12th on the calendar, it will bring up the agenda for today's meeting. There's a hyperlink on the agenda in the event you wish to look at the reports, and you can follow along. I will call this meeting to order, and we are all present. And now for a moment of reflection with City Clerk Matt McDonald.
May we be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. Help us to be concerned only for what will promote good government. May we bring to our council chamber minds that think and hearts that feel, always having respect for others so that we may serve the people of our city in a helpful manner and for the good of all.
Disclosure area, pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Seeing none, I need a motion for the regular council meeting of November 28, 22 and the irregular camera meeting minutes of November 28, 22. Moved by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Chatton. Discussion. All in favor? Carried. Deputations, we have some special deputations tonight. First of all, I'd like to call on Chief Belair. And she's here to present the Provincial Service Awards.
On behalf of John Pegg, Fire Marshal of Ontario. Firefighter Peter Huffman, in sincere appreciation of 25 years of courageous and dedicated service to the residents of Ontario, protecting their lives and property from fire, on behalf of John Pegg, the Fire Marshal of Ontario. Firefighter Adam Jelly, in sincere appreciation of 25 years of courageous and dedicated service to the residents of Ontario, protecting their lives and property from fire, on behalf of John Pegg, Fire Marshal of Ontario. Captain Andy Noyes, in sincere appreciation of 25 years of courageous and dedicated service to the residents of Ontario, protecting their lives and property from fire, on behalf of John Pegg, the Fire Marshal of Ontario. Captain Mark Shannon in sincere appreciation of 25 years of courageous and dedicated service to the residents of Ontario, protecting their lives and property from fire. On behalf of John Pegg, the Fire Marshal of Ontario. Where's their things? Where's their...
They don't come, sir.
So, Captain John Lake, for 30 years of service to the residents of Ontario on behalf of John Pegg, the Fire Marshal. And to Captain Mike McDonald, for 35 years of service to the residents of Ontario on behalf of John Pegg, the Fire Marshal of Ontario.
Walking to this mic and coming back, so. A short walk to return. Now I would like to have Deputy Carter and myself up front to present the chief with her 35-year provincial service bar. Jenna, you'll have to arrange this from, yeah, it's up to you on this one, make us all look good, so. Yeah. Can you get us all, or? Hey, back in a minute. I noticed the union president here, Steve Morgan. We'll get him in the picture also, if we could. We got a short council meeting. I'm just trying to make it longer, guys. So. You're the only deputation, so keep you here for about an hour. Thanks. Do I get to see you? Yeah, you get to stay. I don't know where you're going to put you, but you're the tallest. You're in the back, or?
I'll stand.
Everybody move this way. You haven't got your normal dress on, so you're in trouble. Okay, perfect. Thanks, guys. This afternoon, I'm happy to be able to congratulate the newest Belleville Fire and Emergency Service recruits on completing their training. I thank each one of you for choosing Belleville Fire and the community of Belleville to continue your careers. Many things have changed about Belleville over the years, and we need to safely, securely, and order continues, and we genuinely appreciate your efforts in keeping the residents of Belleville safe. Our residents rely on you and your colleagues to keep us safe, and we appreciate the work and sacrifice you all make in the duties of your position. On behalf of my colleagues of Belleville City Council, congratulations. I will now turn it over to Chief Malik Belair to introduce each and every recruit, along with Deputy Chief Carter.
Okay, so our very first recruit is Robert Howe. Robert comes to us from Napanee Fire Department, where he volunteered from 2016 to 2021 and was a full-time firefighter since 2021 as well, until being hired with Belleville Fire and Emergency Services September of 2022. Robert is also certified heavy equipment operator, volunteers with Morning Star Mission in Napanee, and coaches youth softball and soccer. Next is Richard Quick. Richard was a volunteer with Belleville Fire and Emergency Services Rural Station number 4 from 2016 until being hired full-time in 2022 with Urban Belleville Fire and Emergency Services. Richard was promoted through the ranks of lieutenant and finally captain as a member of Station 4. He also volunteers his time with Belleville Community Outreach Program and the Kingston Area Olympic Wrestling Club. Next is Pierre Muscat Drago. He came to Belleville from Vaughan Fire Department, where he was a first-class firefighter. Prior to starting his career with Vaughan, Pierre served in the Canadian Armed Forces at CFB Trenton and Cold Lake, Alberta as Chief Fire Instructor, Wing Fire Chief, and Fire Service Staff Officer. Pierre also has a bachelor's degree of engineering from RMC and a master's of business and administration from Athabasca University in Alberta. Next is David Allen. David comes to Belleville from Napanee Fire Department, where he volunteers since 2005, rising to the rank of acting captain prior to his hiring with Belleville Fire and Emergency Services. David also has numerous fire prevention and inspection courses to his credit that assisted him in his previous career as a sprinkler and fire protection journeyman, certified through the Ontario College of Trades. Next, Josh Belknap, previously volunteered with Grimshaw Fire Department in Alberta from 2009 to 11. He was hired with Belleville Rural Station number 3 in 2017, where he was promoted to the rank of training officer prior to his hiring with Belleville Fire and Emergency Services in September. Josh is also a very skilled stonemason, which he has been working at since 2004. Dylan Gatward was a volunteer with Belleville Rural Station number 4 from 2017 until being hired this past September. He is a certified primary care paramedic after completing the Loyalist Paramedic program, diploma program in 2021, having also worked previously with Lennox and Addington and Hastings Quinte Paramedic Services. Finally, Britt Ben comes to us from Napanee Fire Department, where she's volunteered since 2021. Britt has a BA in Sociology and Criminology from the University of Guelph and completed her pre-service firefighting education and training at the Justice Institute of British Columbia. Britt was also a member of the National Women's Rugby Sevens team from January 2015 to 2021 and has competed at numerous World Series tournaments and the Olympic Summer Games.
Next, I would like to welcome the participants in the Mayor of the Week program. We have Isaiah O'Connor here from Centennial Secondary School and Joshua Chiononi from Eastside Secondary School. Are both in the audience? Please come forward. Now, first of all, I just want to say we had all high schools represented, but you were the only two that could make it to tonight's council meeting. And so you have the benefit of addressing council. I know you had a great time, I think, with some of our staff, and if you just wanted to have a few minutes of each of you to explain how it was and if you're going to be our future mayors.
I guess I'm going first. First, I would like to thank the mayor, Neil Ellis, the Rotary Club of Belleville, as well as the individuals who gave up their time for this to happen. I'm just very thankful that this was all coming together and that we could have this opportunity. I think I could speak for the students that this time that we had was enjoyable and it was insightful all around. I would like to share with you what I found to be impactful in the past week. So on Monday, we had the meeting with the mayor, Neil Ellis. He was approachable, he was humorous, and he was just a friendly guy all around. Really enjoyed our time. It was once in a lifetime opportunity. In particular, with the meeting with Stephen Ashton, the Director of Engineering and Development Services, they are very essential for Belleville's growth and development, and they are one of the first people to go onto a scene and prepare like the water treatments to get all the water towards the new areas that are needing to be built. So they are very important for the growth and development of this town. Then we went to the public library, which I thought to be very interesting, especially with the huge art gallery that they had, and it was publicly funded as well. They're one of the few libraries to be able to do that, which I thought was very interesting. On Tuesday, there was the eye-opening meeting with Matt McDonald, and he basically told us all the formalities of council and how it works. And also the camera room, which you guys like to apparently go to have nice talks. I was not familiar with the Sports and Wellness Center, but I thought it to be very, it's very splendid, like all the programs that they offer, like, and all the, just the hydro and water to sustain it. It's like a lot, like, I was very impressed by it, and I've never been there before, so I was glad to get a tour of the facilities. And also, I met Joe Reed. He's the general manager of Transportation and Operations Services. He was very interesting and informative. I really enjoyed our time with him. He let us tour the area, let us go into a couple of vehicles, very large and expensive vehicles, I might add. He's what keeps Belleville running, all the parks, all the transit, just and summer winter operations. It was very nice, and he's the one who keeps Belleville running. It's very important for transportation and the operation services just to keep running, you know, and transit is booming right now. So with the growth of Belleville, like, he's very important. And his crew, he's like very essential. On Wednesday, we met Perry at the water treatment plant, and he was a very funny and nice guy. He's also the master of reverse terminology. The water treatment plant runs 24/7, and I also found out that basically from him, his words are, the water treatment plant has many important assets, but the most valuable asset are the human resources, the actual people who run this place. And so I found that with the water treatment plant, sewage treatment plant, there aren't many people who know about those positions. So there are very little people who are specialized in that. And so it is important to raise up kids like us to, you know, be aware, be exposed to that stuff, so we can fill in the gaps when they go. We went to the sewage treatment plant, which I thought to be also very interesting. I found it interesting that they cultivated bugs to help clear all the impurities in the sewage. And they also cultivated bugs to turn the sludge that they gather into fertilizer for farmers, which they give for free, which I thought to be, yes, very interesting. After that, there's Thursday, which we met Chief Mike Callahan, the chief of the new Belleville Police Services that on Sydney Street. Yep, he was well organized and treated the employees very well. Like the police services, there's like a lot of stuff there for the employees whenever they want. Like there's resting areas if they're working long shifts. There's also training rooms. There's just a lot of stuff there. I thought it'd be very interesting. Then we met Karen Post, the manager of economic and strategic initiatives. She basically told us that Belleville is one of the fastest growing cities. And what we need right now is people. So what they're trying to do is they're incentivizing building companies to come in, lowering the taxes so that they can build a whole bunch of small homes for these working class people, because we have about 2,000 unfilled jobs in Belleville and we need some more people. So that's going to be essential in our development. And we also met Brandon Ferguson, the Deputy Director of Finance and the City Treasurer. He's the one who dealt with all the numbers part of it. And let me tell you, there was a lot of numbers. I learned that the majority of the city-owned assets are in good condition right now, with the exception of the sewage treatment plant, which is going to need to be repaired in the foreseeable future. But $150 million isn't going to come by that easily. And then on Friday, the week came to a close with lunch with representatives of the Rotary Club and Joe Reed, who came in and filled in for the mayor and Rod Beauvais, who unfortunately could not make it. But it was nice to see him again, and it was nice to talk with the Rotary Club. I thank them again for this opportunity that I had to experience the just Belleville in general, see how it works. I also want to thank our firefighting friends back here. They helped, they toured, let us tour the facilities. They were very nice, very friendly. They opened up the area to us. It was very nice. They also had incentives for their employees as well, like resting rooms, training rooms, all that good stuff. And we also met Rod Beauvais. He is the Chief Administrative Officer, and he also acts as the mediator between the department heads as well as the council that we have right here. So yes, again, I want to thank the Rotary Club of Belleville. I want to thank the mayor, Rod Beauvais, and all the department heads, everybody who came together and just made this very nice and interesting. And I finally
finally got exposed to Belleville, because I moved here just before the pandemic in February of 2020, and I didn't know what this place would be like. Normally you see just like the federal, provincial heads, and maybe even the mayor if you dig a little deep. But you don't really see who gets to make Belleville, Belleville. So I found this to be very important, and I want many students to be able to do this so that we'll be able to see what areas need to be worked on, how Belleville's gonna grow in the future, and just all these people are what makes Belleville run. They're very important. And so, thank you.
I'd like to thank Isaiah for that. I think he covered everything. So I'll try to keep it brief for you, as I know you want a shorter meeting as the holidays. Good evening. I'd like to thank City Council and staff for letting me speak about my experience. I'd like to give special thanks to Rotary for organizing this great program, as it was a really great week. I've always remembered in school during my grade 5 government unit that municipal government, even though it's the smallest, is really important. This week has definitely reinforced that. I've enjoyed all the presentations and tours, and I'd like to list some of my favorite experiences from this past week. Visiting the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center and getting a bit of the behind-the-scenes tour was amazing. Seeing how well-designed our building was for energy savings and being able to see some of the mechanics behind it was really, really great. Our wellness center is fantastic, a fantastic facility that many are fortunate to have in a place so close to home. Being able to meet with Mayor Ellis was a true highlight for me. It was my first time in the council chambers, as well as being able to discuss and learn a lot about this role and council's role in our city, along with learning more about the procedure of a council meeting and all the business within it. It's really an interesting role. I know that his worship probably thinks that, as he's chosen to come back for more. Last but not least, the water treatment plant was a very interesting experience and a great presentation. Being walked through this whole process and seeing the phases of water was really interesting. I'd highly recommend to anyone who hasn't been. It's a really interesting opportunity, and I would definitely recommend it. I appreciated the detail and depth of all the presentations and tours of all departments and facilities. Our city is really lucky to have these dedicated people working within it. These people, during my time, really did make me feel like I was a true Mayor of the Week. Thank you.
You know, I'd like to thank both of you for your kind words, not only to council, but to staff who make council look good. So congratulations, you made it through the week. And I just wanted to also to mention this is through Rotary Club of Belleville, and they've been doing this for many, many years, and it's been a highlight of my past mayorship and this mayorship to have youth into City Hall and tour them and just see what the operation's about. And hopefully in 15 years or less, one of you might be sitting in this chair, and that's my hope. But it's great that you got together with all the senior managers, and I told you there was going to be a lot of good facilities to see, and it looks like you got to take a chance to meet them all. I need a motion to receive this deputation. Councillor Chatton, Councillor Enright, Miller, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. We move to correspondence. December 5th, 2022, a letter from Downtown District BBIA is about a letter of non-objection to a food truck waiver. That the December 5th, 2022 letter from the Downtown District BBIA, or BIA, confirming the port's support for waiving the provisions contained in Schedule 1, bylaw number 206140, that prohibits refreshment vehicles from operating within the downtown business improvement area be approved, and the provision contained in bylaw number 206140 be waived for Enchanted Holiday Market, December 15th to 18th, 2022 for Beaver Tails Mobile Street, Southeast Ontario. Moved by Councillor Alsop, seconded by Councillor Enright Miller. Discussion? All in favor? Carried. Committee of the Whole, we need a resolution that Council rise and go into report of the Committee of the Whole to hear and consider reports, passing of recommendations and resolutions with Councillor Alsop in the chair. Moved by Counselor Brown, seconded by Counselor Kelly. All in favor? You're here.
All right, we'll begin our reports with 8A1, appointment of council members to various city committees and boards. This is report DCS 2022-33. The resolution is that pursuant to the Director of Corporate Services Clerk's Report number DCS-2022-33, appointment of council members to various city committees and boards, a bylaw to amend bylaw 2019-02, the appointments bylaw, be prepared for council's consideration. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councilor Chatton, seconded by Councilor Enright Miller. Discussion? Yes, recognize Councilor Millette.
I'd like to make a friendly amendment to the list. In discussions prior to the meeting, I'm listed as chairing transit, and Councilor Catherine Brown, sorry, has, my apologies, I just gapped out there, but too many years of playing contact sport without a helmet. Has agreed to take on that chairmanship, as there are others not in this list that I will be hopefully chairing in the coming term. So if we can make that amendment to the list, that Councilor Brown will in fact chair transit, and I will remain on as a member. If that, the mover and the seconder accept that as a friendly amendment.
And mover was, yep, Chatton and Enright Miller. Perfect. All in favor? Perfect. Any more discussion on the item? No? All in favor? It's carried. Item 8A2, Population, Housing, and Employment Growth Forecast Update. This is report DEDS-2022-06. The resolution being that pursuant to the Director of Engineering and Development Services report DEDS-2022-06, dated December 12th, 2022, Belleville Council adopts the Population, Housing, and Employment Growth Forecast Update for November 30th, 2022. I have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councilor Carr and seconded by Councilor Brown. Discussion? Yes, Councilor Carr.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and certainly appreciate this report from the Director of Engineering Development Services. It's going to be more important, and I've said this here before, that we track how much availability we have for growth, and making sure that we're set up from a capital perspective, but also tracking what's being done. You know, it's been said here time and time again, and in other places, other levels of government, that we're gatekeepers again. And, you know, I don't want to belabor the issue, but at the same time, I need to hammer home the facts. And interestingly enough, new residential permits issued to date is 163, which is quite low in comparison to the average. I think the Quinte Home Builders said they were averaging around 242 last year. One particular development that's been approved for some time has 40 building permits currently issued in 2022, but only 4 units are currently being built. And so it's important for us to have the right narrative in terms of ensuring that we're tracking where growth needs to go, but we're also tracking what's being done from the municipal end in terms of getting lands ready for development. And it's unfortunate, but in a lot of ways, the development industry controls how, through commodity, how a city gets developed and how it grows. And I talked to a local realtor just recently who said because of high interest rates and because of falling prices, there are builders that are actually slowing down builds because they can't maximize their price. And that's unfortunate, because we're hearing time and time again that we need more houses like ever before. And even with federal immigration projections, and I know that typically goes to our large urban centers across the country, but it does have a trickle-down effect in smaller communities such as ours. We've seen immigration in terms of moving from big city to our area, and that's going to continue with that pressure. And so it's important that we have all the data front and center and available to the public to know exactly what we're doing as far as getting ready for growth, how we're managing that growth, And then we expect the private sector to come along beside us and keep pace with the demand that's required. At the end of the day, you know, and I understand from the building sector, it's profit driven, but at the same token is people are finding it harder and harder to afford a home. And when you control the scarcity of an item, being a house, then therefore we don't have the houses available for people to move into. And so we really got to change that narrative. And so this is good information, and I agree that we need to be tracking this more frequently and obviously adjust our capital plan as a result as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Any further discussion on this item? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. We'll move now to item 8A3, Consolidated Fees and Charges Bylaw. This is report DDF-2022-11. The resolution being that pursuant to report number DDF-2022-11, Consolidated Fees and Charges Bylaw, a bylaw to establish fees and charges, be prepared for Council's consideration. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Millette. Any discussion? Yes, Councillor Brown.
Thank you. My question, in all likelihood, is better put to staff, either Mr. Ferguson or Mr. Ashton. Under the Consolidated Fees and Changes Bylaw, I'd like to understand if there are any implications from Bill 23, the 5-year phase-in requirement that's identified in 23, that requires that we go retroactively to January the 1st, 2022.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. I see staff negotiating who will be handling this item. Yes, Director Ferguson.
Through the chair to Councillor Brown, there won't be any effect from Bill 23 for the rates. For the phase-in, our bylaw was passed within the period. There won't be retroactivity for the DC bylaw, if that's what's being referenced.
So then a follow-on question is, this particular item is recommending increases in fees, and my question is, are we in a position to do that given the requirements within Bill 23?
Yes, again to Director Ferguson.
So the fee increases that are recommended would be more for operating as opposed to capital projects. And in terms of its impact, it's basically the increase would assist to Bill 190, not Bill 23, because they did multiple changes to the Planning Act, etc. So Bill 190 requires a compressed timeline to approve, or you start refunding your application fees for zoning and site plans. So in terms of zoning, yeah, you basically have 90 days or you start refunding. So the fees are intended to address staffing issues and increase staffing to make sure that we don't have, well, we'll attempt not to refund fees. Of course, there's always going to be those outlier applications where there's a lot of community input that we have to pause to take time to make sure those concerns, but basically it'll assist in meeting those 90-day targets of Bill 190 legislation. Okay.
All right, thank you. Further questions? Councillor Millette.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Mr. Ashton, I guess it would be, again, seeing as we've got him on the hot seat already. Mr. Ashton, we, all of us prior to arriving today got a bit of a last-minute letter from Quinte Home Builders urging us to sort of back burner the portion of this bylaw, and I don't know how we would do that, but these fee increases for development charges, and they basically, in a nutshell, asked us if it's prudent and or if we can't hold these development charge increases for the home building sector until fee study that is apparently currently underway that they referenced is complete. Could you explain that, or tell us why that isn't workable? Or is workable?
I did contact Quinte Home Builders Association and let them know of these upcoming increases. In terms of the fee study, that, and Mr. Ferguson here could probably answer that a little better, as well as Mr. Hustwick, but that fee study is more specifically related to the parks and rec fees, or recreational services fees that are being charged. So what we did before we submitted to finance was to look at 6 comparator municipalities. So we basically looked at the average of Brighton, Cobourg, Kingston, Prince Edward County, Peterborough, Quinte West, similar geographic locations, similar growth pressures, but it's not development charge, it's the application fees, which are intended for cost recovery of staff time to process those planning applications. What we found was if you took the average that we're proposing, we're more than half of our fees are on the low end, like we don't even come close to the average, so there is quite of an adjustment then. I guess council, if they wanted to look at a fees study, I just put forward a simple process of looking at the average surrounding areas to determine what those costs could be. There is sort of involvement with hourly involvement of these applications, those sorts of things as part of a fee study. I think and I've had discussions with Quinte Home Builders, and they are aware that if there was a fee study, that it could be more than what was involved here as well. So as a director, I'm comfortable recommending that this is probably a very reasonable fee structure that's being proposed tonight.
Okay, thank you. And just as a comment on that, the letter from Quinte Home Builders did reference the fact that they're cognizant of the fact that should we go down that route as you discussed, they could very well be looking at even higher fees. Their concern and the letter that was sent to us expresses, I guess, if I read it right, they're asking us to pump the brakes until everything's looked at. I know we've talked about this previously, bringing our fees and our services in line with our comparative communities. I'm comfortable with the fact that we're not pricing ourselves out of the market, for lack of a better term, that we're not competitive with other municipalities with these rates, but we do have to be cognizant of the fact that our staff time needs to be compensated, and we do, we can't do these development services at a loss to the taxpayer. So thanks for that explanation, and I'm comfortable with the fee structure here.
Great, thank you, Councilor Millette. Any further discussion? If not, call a question. All in favor? It's carried. We'll move on to item 8A4, proposed water and wastewater rates for the city of Belleville effective January 1st, 2023. This is report DDF-2022-12. The resolution being that pursuant to the report number DDF-2022-12, the rates for water and wastewater be included in the consolidated rates and fees bylaw for council's consideration. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councilor Enright Miller, seconded by Mayor Ellis. Any discussion? Yes, Councilor Thompson.
Talked about this probably every election and every rate increase since I started on council. I have to say, doing as little a door-to-door as I did this year, one of the main comments that I heard from people is our sewer and water rates are too high. Now you look at the comparison rates, we're in line. But where I find a lot of people are complaining about is our sewer, our wastewater is based on our water usage, and the only way of getting around that is if we have wastewater meters, and we don't have that. But if you compare the other ones, and really what I'm trying to get out here is, if the public thinks we're too high, then we've got to do a better job of getting out to the public why those charges are what they are. And we look at it, 3.67% increase. You know, we're going from 2022 for one charge, $4 extra. Another one is $1 extra, $1.50. Well, it may need not be a lot, but you put those two together, we're $4 and $1, we're $6.50 a month extra. And we haven't even looked at our tax bill, which went out for 2023. Hasn't gone out for 2023, but these are going to take effect somehow. And I get same story every year. We need it for infrastructure. And Perry's looking at me out there, Director Perry, shaking his head, yes we do, and I know that. But how do we get out to the public that these are realistic figures? People are saying a lot of people said, not a lot, a few people said door to door, we don't hear enough information from City Hall of why this and why that. My say is that we've got to do a better job of getting the information out to the individual. How we do that, I don't know, but I just know that I heard door to door, and I heard a few people saying that when other councillors came door to door, or prospective councillors came door to door, they were concerned about the same thing, that sewers and water. So it's not just me, it's either the present ones or the future ones that were coming on board. So I still say we need to do a better job, and I know Director Perry's going to stand up and say, I'm going to ask him, please explain in layman's words why these rates have to be.
Director DeCola, if you would like to do that.
Through the chair to Councillor Thompson, and you did not add there's only one taxpayer this time around.
I was going to mention that at the end.
I know, it's tradition for the last 17 years, so
I know.
I just couldn't resist. Are you right that we could do a better job at communicating what is involved? Yes, you are right. Communication has taken a bit of a sidetrack during the times of COVID. The infrastructure that we have to put into the ground, there's $1.6 billion approximately just in the pipes and the treatment facilities. And that has a specific life expectancy. We have to put the money in. We are a user pay system, which means we can't depend on the taxation roll. So whoever uses the system has to pay for it. As we find water conservation, which is a very important aspect of our job and helps prolong the life of our facilities and the ability to build off of it, it also decreases the amount of revenue that we generate. When you look at the sewage treatment plant and the charge for the sewer, again, there is no meter on the sewage side of the equation, which will cause problems in people's perception. But if I'm not mistaken, is it 86.3? 86.7%. So what they're saying is 87.6. I stand corrected. Thank you. 87.6% of the water that's consumed is anticipated to go down the drain. Typically, the highest cost or concern for people is in the summertime when they run their sprinkler. And just for a point of reference, to run a sprinkler is $3 an hour. So for every hour you keep it running, you anticipate $3 extra. So you keep that going for 10 hours a day, your rate will dramatically increase, and it will also cost against the sewage because we have no variance as to how that will be calculated.
Okay. Yeah, and thank you, Dr. Perry. So all I would ask is that sometime in the near future, when we're sending out our sewer and water bill, if we could have some little more explanation how this is broke down, why it has to be this, and maybe some comparisons of other communities in the rates, so that they have a little better idea of why these, of their perception that these are too high. And again, I'm going to close: one taxpayer, one sewer water bill, one water bill, one sewer, one tax bill. We gotta remember that.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Director DeCola, did you want to have another word?
Just one last word through the chair to the rest of council. We will work with communications and our environmental coordinator to draft up something for communication. And we'll find multiple ways of doing it, not just through the mailers, try and find other ways through social media and the website.
Any other comments or questions? All right, well, before we call the question, I would just like to say that if any of you see our friend Mayor Harrison from Quinte West, if we look at the chart on the bottom of page 104, Quinte West is not the best when it comes to wastewater. So there you go. All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. So we'll move on to section 8B, which is consent items. Council may adopt consent items by one motion, but prior to such consideration, members may request that specific items be removed from consideration under such motion, and council shall consider such items individually. So I'll start on my left-hand side with Councillor Thompson. We'll go around the table. Any items you'd like to pull?
No, thank you.
Councillor Carr?
No, thank you.
Councillor Enright Miller?
8B2.
8B2. Great, thank you. Mayor Ellis?
No, thank you.
Councillor Brown?
No, thank you.
Councillor Chatton?
No, thank you.
Councillor Millette?
8B2's already been pulled, but I would ask 8B4, 5 and 6, but it's all one question. Thank you.
4, 5, and 6. Fair enough. And Councillor Kelly?
No, thank you.
All right, so the motion is that the consent items be approved with the exceptions of item 8B2, 8B4, 8B5, and 8B6. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor Brown, Councillor Chatton, all in favor? It's carried, and we'll move to item 8B2, which is the annual report 2022 use of animal traps. This is report GMTOS-2022-28, annual report 2022 use of animal traps. The resolution is that the General Manager of Transportation and Operations Services, report number GMTOS-2020, says 2021, should be 2022? Yes, all right. -28, annual report 2022, use of animal traps be received as information. Any discussion? Oh, I need a mover and a seconder? Yes, Councillor Chatton and Councillor Millette. Discussion? Yes, Councillor Enright Miller.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just a point of clarification, if I could, to Mr. Reid. I was just, an inquiry came to me about the trapping of the beavers. And I know there's a policy in place, or I assume there's a policy in place that city staff endeavors to protect them. I see in 2022 there was about 17 beavers captured. I take it that they're all euthanized. I'm not fully aware of the policy. I guess my question is, that's our only recourse is to do what we're doing. I know beavers are just sort of territorial. If you take them away, they'll come back. Is there anything else? Have we looked at any other any ways to treat this problem that we have? I'm a newbie on the block, so maybe you've looked at every option. I just don't know. Could you just some interest?
Yes, over to Manager Reid.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Enright Miller. In approximately 2018, 2019, we did develop a policy surrounding the trapping of beavers and nuisance situations, and I will share that with actually all of due council, so you're fully aware of the policy and what was developed. Essentially the Coles Notes version is that, we look at mitigating measures first, look at the surroundings. I can quite assure you we do not go looking for them. It's very reactionary. People call in if there's flooding or damming or so forth. And then we have to obviously deal with the situations. Every one of them within this context of the report or in this calendar year, unfortunately, did not allow or allow us to use mitigating measures except for Stanley Park, which we did actually on numerous occasions try to go in and put a pipe leveler system in where we dig out the dam. Unfortunately, we did put in a beaver deceiver a number of years ago, and we had an individual come up from Maine, and it was very enlightening. He came up, and we did try to do that, but beavers are a very smart animal, and unfortunately, they obviously moved inward and didn't continue to use that beaver deceiver. So we tried to put that pipe system in to allow the water to continue. Unfortunately, they just kept making the problem worse, and we had to, again, we got lots of calls, and it was affecting the residents on the north side of that area. So the Coles Notes version is, yes, we try to do what we can within the circumstances, and I'll share a copy of the policy with all of council.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Enright Miller. Any other questions? Yes, Councillor Chatton.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I'm wondering if we know what kind of beaver traps are actually being used, if there is a chance of the beaver drowning or going through undue, unnecessary hardship while being trapped. That's something that we should be concerned about when we're using something to get rid of a, quote-unquote nuisance animal. And also, I'm wondering what exactly is the process. I know that the policy is going to be forthcoming and we're going to get to read it, but I would like to know right now, what is the policy on our removal of beavers? Are they to be euthanized right away and or relocated? And if they are relocated, where did they go?
Thank you, Councillor Chatton. Manager Reid?
So through the best practices that were provided as a guideline from the Ministry of Natural Resources, unfortunately, beavers can only be relocated up to 1 kilometer in distance. So they're very territorial. So what happens is that if they are moved to another beaver's area, one of them is going to fight to, unfortunately, to their death. So we do outline the policy outlines it. Again, we look at the area. Can we actually leave it? That is sometimes an option. If it's in a very remote area, there are times that we leave it and we let Mother Nature take its course. But again, there are other places that unfortunately we can't. So I know the George Street area along the riverfront or the Bayshore Trail. Unfortunately, they were cutting down a lot of trees and so forth. We did try to put some fence up to try to mitigate that. It was becoming quite hazardous. The trees were falling, and again, we were worried about somebody walking and using the trail, and unfortunately, the tree coming down on them. So we tried to put up fence to protect the trees and protect the danger. Unfortunately, it got to the point where it was unmanageable to. It was taxing on resources, so to speak. So, anyways, we did that, and I will send out the policy for everybody to be aware. So,
great, thank you, Manager Reid. Any further questions on this item? I'll call the question. All in favor? Great. So the next item that was pulled was 8B4, which is the Family Dental Center Naming Rights Agreement, amending and extending. This is report MCRC-2022-01, and the resolution is that pursuant to the Marketing and Customer Relations Coordinator Report number MCRC-2022-01, that a bylaw be prepared to approve and authorize the execution of the amending and extending naming rights agreement for the Family Dental Center Arena and the Family Dental Center Indoor Track, located at the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center between the Corporation of the City of Belleville and Family Dental Center. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Kelly, Councillor Millette. I believe it was Councillor Millette that had pulled this item, so I'll go to you for discussion.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to Director Hustwick. Mr. Hustwick, I've been asked this in the past, and it's specific to the issue of the marquee signs at Quinte Sports and Wellness Center. I had asked, and I had asked this informally in the past. I noticed that in the agreements for naming of the arenas, and that's why I said 8B, 4, 5, and 6, because we're altering we're amending the agreement, extending it for the naming rights on this. But part and parcel of the naming rights, and this was the question that was asked of me, is that the naming rights permit for Family Dental Center, Mackey Insurance Brokers, and Templeman LLP, advertising that appears on the marquee, I guess, is my question. But is that part of the, my question, I guess, is those advertisements that come on the marquee as part of the agreement for the naming rights, is that for the life of the agreement, or is there a specified amount of time that they can be advertised? Because the question that was asked of me is that one or more of these naming rights people seem to be on that marquee constantly, and they wondered, okay, to what point does naming rights get you constant advertising on a city marquee kind of thing?
Thank you, Councillor Mudd. I'll direct that to Director Hustwick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Millette. As far as I know, and I'll have to go back and confirm that, but as far as I'm aware that the two are linked, and it would be for the life of these naming rights agreements. But I'll double check that and get back to council.
Okay, thank you. And the reason I ask is that in reading through the report, and it reminded me of this question that this business person had asked me last year or the year before. I noticed that if you buy the advertising on that marquee sign, you get it for a minimum ad every 10 minutes, 6 ads per hour, 114 ads a day, 3,420 ads each month. You know, that's a lot of advertising on a busy thoroughfare for, you know, sure, you've got a sponsorship or a naming right that you pay, as I believe, $75,000 over a 5-year period, I believe, or something to that effect. But included in that is a fair amount of advertising. But that's an awful lot of ads, and yeah, if you could get that information for me, that'd be great.
Yes, Director Hustwick.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Advertising is certainly an area that we're going to be, as part of the new department, that we're going to be taking a very close look at, all advertising, all revenue generating opportunities. So that's part of the transition plan. But just in terms of marquee signs, usually the amount of rotation of the advertising also depends on the number of advertisers that we have contract with. So often, if there are fewer, those that we have agreements with are probably going to get more coverage. So, but I'll certainly look into these specific ones. But overall, we're going to be taking a very close look at our entire advertising strategy.
Yeah, much appreciated. And I see that for anyone who does buy advertising on that, we're lowering our rates actually from $200 to $60, and from that's for the marquee sign, the video board per week, and the marquee sign at Zwick's from $200 to $25. So there are deals to be had, I guess, if you want to. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Councillor Millette, and I know that you pulled these items so that you could hear me read them all, and I will proceed to do that. I'll call the question on this item. Oh yes, Mayor Ellis. Mayor Ellis, if you could activate your microphone.
So having said that, these are renewals. Did we look at competitive rates with other arena facilities and things like this to see that we're getting fair value for that dollar, or will that be in your next report? And if so, I know it's a 5-year period. If I'm just, you know, trying to guess at, throw a dart at the ball and see if these are actually competitive rates.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the Mayor. These were, my understanding is these were conducted through an RFP process, so they were competitively tendered, and these were the successful applicants. So naming rights is always a very competitive and also challenging business practice, because it depends on the willingness of companies for that type of process. So many of these had renewal terms within their agreements. When those are completed or not invoked, we'll go through another competitive process. But we would certainly be looking at, as part of that procurement process, similar rates in other communities.
Okay, and that would include such signage and that you'll figure out for Councillor Millette?
Yes.
Great.
All right, thank you. Do we have any further questions or comments? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. And we'll move on to item 8B5, Mackey Insurance Brokers, Inc. Naming Rights Agreement, amending and extending. The report is MCRC-2022-03. The resolution being that pursuant to the Marketing and Customer Relations Coordinator Report, number MCRC-2022-03, that a bylaw be prepared to approve and authorize the execution of the amending and extending naming rights agreement for the Mackey Insurance Arena located at the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center between the Corporation of the City of Belleville and Mackey Insurance Brokers, Inc. Can I get a mover and a second? Moved by Councillor Chatton, seconded by Councillor Enright Miller. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? It's carried. And we will move on to item 8B6, the Templeman LLP Naming Rights Agreement, amending and extending, MCRC-2022-02. We have a motion to move as read. All in favor? It's carried. Seconded by Councillor Chatton. All in favor? It's carried. All right, we'll move on to 8C, which is council information matters. Council may adopt consent items by one motion, but prior to consideration of such motion, members may request that specific items be removed from consideration under such motion, and council shall consider such items individually. I'll go around in the opposite direction, starting with Councillor Kelly.
No, thank you.
Councillor Millette.
Yes, 8C2, C, and B and C, please.
8C2B and 8C2C? Correct. Thank you. Councillor Chatton?
No, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Brown?
No, thank you.
Mayor Ellis?
No, thank you.
Councillor Enright Miller?
No, thank you.
Councillor Carr?
No, thank you.
And Councillor Thompson?
No, thank you.
All right, so the resolution is that the agenda items be received with the exception of items 8C2B and 8C2C. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Chatton, seconded by Councillor Enright Miller. All in favor? It is carried. And we'll go to item 8C2B. The request from the province to extend the commenting period on Bill 23, More Homes Built Faster Act 2022, to at least January 31st, 2023, to enable time for consultation, consideration of alternative options, and thorough analysis of both short and long-term impacts. This is the November 23, 2022 resolution from the City of Toronto. And this was moved by Councillor Millette and Councillor Kelly. Any discussion? Yes, Councillor Millette.
Yeah, I pulled this one in, and I'm a little unclear because of the timing of this. The letter from the City of Toronto, and I'm recommending that we simply endorse this letter asking for further consultation, because as we spoke about at our last meeting, the speed and suddenness and the lack of consultation of Bill 23 was alarming, not just to this municipality, but I think pretty much every municipality in Ontario. I'm just not sure if there's any point in adopting this or endorsing this, because I see that it's dated, what was the initial date of the Toronto motion? Of November, and then in the next breath, the act was passed. So I think it's a little moot on this one. I think we were just a little late getting this one on the agenda. But that said, it goes part and parcel with 8B, we're still dealing with 8B, or 8C2B. Yeah. I'll simply suggest that we endorse it, and if there's any faint hope that we could have further consultation on Bill 23, I'm all in favor of it, and certainly if the City of Toronto can push it on our behalf, but again, I think it may be moot at this point, but it doesn't hurt to endorse.
Great, thank you, Councillor Millette. Any other discussion on this item? No, call the question. All in favor? It's carried. We'll move on to 8C2C. Request the province repeal Bill 23 until such time as further analysis, consideration of consultation, feedback, and meaningful engagement has occurred with municipalities and stakeholders. This is the November 28th, 2022 resolution from the town of Orangeville. And this was pulled by Councillor Millette. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Brown. And discussion.
For all the things I just said the last time, I will endorse any and everything that comes before us from any other fellow municipality. And I note that we have an item on today's agenda or that was sent to us late or mid-afternoon. And it's a letter that is going out to our representatives from the province regarding comments from our planning staff on the relationship we have with Quinte Conservation and the effects of Bill 23. But for everything I said before and we said last meeting, the egregious manner in which Bill 23 has been foisted upon municipalities, I think it behooves us to support any and all, including the motion from the resolution of the town of Orangeville. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Millet. Any further discussion on the item? No, I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Next is item 8C3. I don't believe we had any correspondence. Is that correct? So we'll, do we need a motion for that? No? So we'll move to rise and report. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councilor Carr, seconded by Councilor Enright Miller, and I'll return to my chair. All in favor?
Thank you. Bylaws, we have first reading of bylaws. Bylaw 2022, we're going to have to pass as amended. It's a bylaw number 2019-02, being a bylaw to appoint members of boards, committees, and special committees to be passed as amended. Another bylaw here, if you can just take out bylaw 2022-178, it will not be read tonight. I'll give you a second for that. And with permission of council, I'll just read the numbers here tonight if I see that. Okay, great. So first reading of bylaws, bylaw 171 as amended, 172, 2022, 173, 174, 175, 176, 177, 179, and 180. Be moved by Councillor Chatton, seconded by Councillor Thompson. All in favor? Carried. Second reading of bylaws and discussions. Bylaw 2022, 171, 172, 173, 174, 175, 176, 177, 179, 180. Moved by Councillor Chatton, Councillor Kelly. Discussion. Councillor Carr.
Thank you. I got some questions with respect to bylaw 2022-176. It's a bylaw to approve and execute a service agreement between the city and Hastings County under the Homelessness Prevention Program funded by the Ministry of Housing or Municipal Affairs and Housing, and it's pertaining to the operation of the Warming Center from December 15th to the March 31st. My first question is are we, after the signing of this agreement, ready for it to be opened on the 15th of December?
CAO Bove.
Through your worship to Councillor Carr, yes, everything is in order. We've had inspection through fire prevention, which has rated in conjunction with our building inspectors. The facility has capacity of 88 persons, and our property staff has gone through and done a proper cleanup, and we have a contractor in place to clean the facility daily, and it's set up to be operated every night from this week through to March.
That's great, thank you. Now, with respect to the actual agreement, section 11.1.1, and it talks about where the City of Belleville, through Integrity Investigative Solutions, submit quarterly data to the county. And I'm just asking a question with respect to the data that is being collected. So I'm going to go backwards. I can see that total number of households assisted with referrals to other supports and services, which makes sense. Total number of individuals served at the Warming Center. But the first two, total number of households assisted, and then it's broken down by adult and child. So what assistance is outlined there that's different than referral to other supports or services or being served at the actual center?
Okay, Councillor Bove, or CAO Bove.
Through the chair to Councillor Carr. This was, the collection of the data was previously done by county staff at the facility when it was previously operated in the old former police station. And so, although I don't know the distinction between those two, they're essentially asking the security staff that are there every evening to collect the information that they were collecting previously. I believe there may be an issue with any children that come to the warming center. I don't believe children are permitted in the warming center, and they would be referred to other services, and that may be, they're trying to keep track of how many they refer to other service providers.
Okay, thank you. And then just my last question then is with respect to the referrals. And I know I've said this previously when this was in operation. It's important that we have the service providers there to connect. And it's easy to say, go see this person during the day, and they may not necessarily do that. Whereas when they come in out of the cold for the evening, it would make sense to have some of those services there. Do we have any indication whether any of the nonprofit groups or any of the supporting agencies plan to attend at any time in order to make that personal connection?
Through the chair to Councillor Carr, my information that's been provided is that none of the services have any ability to provide a presence at the warming center on a nightly basis. We attempted to do that previously, and they simply indicated that they did not have the resources to man that. Now, whether they stop in occasionally, I can't answer that question, but certainly on a regular basis, they're not there.
Okay, and I'll just comment, that's unfortunate, and obviously something that we're gonna need to work on and really challenge, because again, it's trying to meet people where they are, and they can easily, and we do have facilities open during the day, business hours, but people aren't going there, and so we have to connect with them. So hopefully we can see a change in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carr, for that. All in favor of the second reading of bylaws? Carried. I need a motion for the, just with council's permission, I'll just read these as going with the numbers. I see that. Bylaw 2022-171, bylaw 22-172, 22-173, 174, 175, 176, 177, 179, and 180. Moved by Councillor Chatton, Councillor Alsop. All in favor? Carried. New business. Anybody having some? Councillor Kelly.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Should I stand for this? I would like to proclaim January as Crime Stoppers Month. Crime Stoppers Quinte is a program separate from the emergency telephone number system or other standard methods of contacting police that allows a member of the community to provide anonymous information about criminal activity. This allows a person to provide crime-solving assistance to the authorities without being directly involved in the investigation process. Crime Stopper programs are operated in many communities worldwide. The authorities, especially the police, sometimes rely on information from the public. Crime Stoppers Quinte was developed to combat the public's fear of reprisals, public apathy, and a reluctance to get involved. So the city's going to claim January Crime Stoppers Month.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly, for that. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I'd like to make one proclamation. I would like to proclaim January as Alzheimer's Awareness Month. It is during this time of year the Alzheimer's Society launches a public awareness. By 2050, there will be 1.7 million Canadians living with dementia. Locally, over 5,000 people are estimated to be affected with excluding the 1,000 family members who provide direct care. The Alzheimer's Society raises awareness for dementia to the public and identifies warnings and stresses the importance of early diagnosis while offering support and program for those living with dementia. The Society provides free navigation, education, support, and resources to all those affected by the forms of memory loss and their care partners. The Belleville sign, Bridge Street, Fire Station number 1, Memorial Gardens will be lit blue for the majority of January in this cause, and I ask for support for the Alzheimer's Awareness Month, I move this.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor In re Miller?
Thank you, Chair. Through you. The city would like to make a proclamation, and I would like to proclaim December 18th to the 24th as Salvation Army Week. The Salvation Army is the largest non-governmental service provider in Canada and has been serving men, women, and children across our great nation for 135 years. It is distinguished by its compassion and commitment towards those it serves across a broad range of services and programs including food banks, homeless shelters, thrift stores, mental health counseling, correctional and justice services, community and family services, and many more. The Belleville sign, Bridge Street and Bridge, and Fire Station Number 1 Memorial Garden will be lit in red on December 18th to the 24th for this cause. I'd like a motion to approve this.
Do we need a motion for that?
Do we need-
No,
No?
we
Okay.
don't. We'll proclaim it. That's good.
Thank you.
Any other new business? Councillor Millet?
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have a prepared request, but it's been now quite some time, and we have a full year under our belt of the open air burning bylaw in the urban area in particular. And I don't know about my fellow councillors, but I've received a number of calls, concerns, and occasional emails about the manner in which some of our neighbors are adhering to or not the policies of this. And I would simply ask if I may, sometime early in the new year, if Chief Belair or any of her fire prevention staff could, for council, prepare a report on the first full year, I guess, if we could, of the open air burning bylaw in the city of Belleville, complaints and or problems, possible recommendations that they might see in terms of modifying the policy, but and again, there's no terrible rush on it, but as we're now at the end of 2022 and we've had a full year of the open air burning bylaw under our belt, it's better to get a clearer picture. So if I could ask that, I see the clerk is scribbling madly. Thanks.
Yes, Councillor
very
Millet
much,
will have that at the MT team, have a report back to council. Thank you. Any other new business? Seeing none, we'll move to motions. Moved by Councillor Carr, the City Council convene a Health and Homeless Summit in early 2023 to focus on how to collaboratively influence lasting, impactful change to address the chronic homelessness and mental health crisis in our community, and that individuals be extended to invitations be extended to representatives from the federal and provincial governments, as well as relevant municipal departments, health and mental health care providers, not-for-profit housing providers, developers, not-for-profit service organizations, community outreach groups, residents, and most importantly, individuals experiencing these chronic issues. I need a seconder. Councillor Brown. Councillor Carr, you're up.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to rise and speak to the issue of the Homelessness Summit as my first motion of this term. I know that we all campaigned on this issue of homelessness, so I'm hopeful that when it comes time to vote, this becomes our collective motion, our collective priority. The purpose of the summit is to provide overall leadership and direction through community-wide stakeholder dialogue and expert advice, with the goal of developing a plan to ending homelessness in our community. And hopefully with neighboring partnerships, this goal extends to our entire region. Managing homelessness is simply not working. We continue to see a rise in these numbers, and despite some great work of various groups and agencies, some of our fellow citizens continue to follow through these gaps. We need to recalibrate so we're ending homelessness by focusing on prevention and rehousing. We also need municipal departments, healthcare providers, nonprofit housing providers, developers, service organizations, and outreach groups, and residents all focused on this goal. Coupled with a rise in homelessness, we're also seeing an exponential rise in mental health issues. Many of these struggles are highly visible in our parks, on our trails, and on our streets. Many are left to struggle on their own with little or no support. And I referred to that earlier about the warming center. This is simply wrong, and we as community leaders cannot tolerate this status quo any longer. There simply needs to be a robust continuum of care approach when it comes to the unhoused and mental health. With this summit, we also most importantly need to hear from those that are experiencing homelessness and struggling with other issues. It's my hope that this summit will give a voice to those that are voiceless. Finally, I view this summit as a launch to ending homelessness plan that will deliver measurable results to our most vulnerable residents. This is a crisis, and it needs a crisis-type response. We need unwavering, sustained focus on this goal. We simply need to work towards ending homelessness in our community, and I see this summit as a first step. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Councillor Ossoff.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to lend my support to the motion. I want to thank Councillor Carr for bringing this forward, as it certainly was something that appeared in a lot of our campaign materials and something I know that all of us feel very strongly about. As we look around our city, you couldn't be more right. We see a lot of mental health issues that are underlying a lot of people who perhaps are disabled and are unable to maintain housing because of the cost of it. And we have a lot of great grassroots organizations that are doing great work, but perhaps we're not utilizing them in the best way. Perhaps there are gaps in that system. And I think it behooves all of us to find out what those might be so we can deliver a more effective response to sort of the triumvirate of healthcare, mental health, and homelessness issues in our city. And so I'll certainly be supporting the motion, and I want to thank Councillor Carr for bringing that forward.
Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. And yes, I applaud Councillor Carr for putting this together and moving forward with the Health and Homelessness Summit. We see it every day, and Councillor Carr is right. It's crisis, and enough's enough. And as leaders in the community, we have to take this to the next level and build relationships and all those partnerships and agencies that work with those experiencing homelessness need to be at the table, and I know they will be, because we see it every day. And if that doesn't affect you, you don't have a pulse. When you see, and now particularly when it's getting colder. Maranatha Church had an event in Belleville on Sunday, and as people were leaving, I think Quinty Symphony performed, and there was a gentleman there pushing his grocery cart, and it was getting colder, and he was asking for help. And I know we got the warming center in a few days, but I'll be there to support you with this, and it's the right time, and thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly, for that. Councillor Chatton.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I think this is an excellent start. It's actually something that was definitely on my radar for several years now, and it was something that I campaigned on as well. What I would just like to mention is, let's not stop with a summit. I would like to see something that continues, something that is a round table, that we have a lot of real grassroots outreach, that we talk to the people. We actually do talk to the people that are most affected by this, because they have ideas too. And they have solutions that we haven't looked at yet. I've been talking to several that show up around our courthouse, and I can tell you that we do have untapped ideas out there. So I will be supporting you as well. I just hope that this is not a one-step process, that this is something we are going to continue to evolve with.
Thank you, Councillor Chatton. Any other discussion? Before I call a vote, I just want to commend Councillor Carr for this initiative, and I mentioned to you before, if this motion passes, that you'll have full support of our team here with all of us, council and our senior management team, to make this one of the things that are definitely needed and definitely move not only our city in the right direction, our agencies also. So having said that, all in favor? And I see that as unanimous on that. Thank you very much, Council. Councillor Carr, you've been busy. Second motion. This one might be more controversial. So that bylaw number 2019 or 2019-48, being a bylaw to provide rules governing and calling place and proceedings of meetings of City of Belleville Council and the conduct of its members, be amended by amending Part 5, Section 5.4, subsection 2, to read that the regular council meetings shall commence at 5 p.m. except as may be otherwise authorized by the mayor. Moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Counselor Chatton, Counselor Carr, you're up.
Yes, thank you. Yes, this will be a little different. They say there's a third rail in politics that you never touch. There's one in the community when you're politicking, and there's another one when you're in council chamber. This would be the one. I don't mind touching this third rail, and it's actually become tradition where I've done it pretty much every term. I want to take everybody down a trip down the 401 corridor very quickly. I'm going to start with Pickering, and you'll see where I'm going. Pickering, 7 p.m. Ajax, 7 p.m. Clarington, 6:30 p.m. Port Hope, 6:30 p.m. Cobourg, 6 p.m. Brighton, 6:30 p.m. Quinte West, 6:30 p.m. Prince Edward County, 7 p.m. Greater Napanee, 7 p.m. Loyalist Township, 7 p.m. Kingston, City Kingston, 7 p.m. Gananoque, 6 p.m. Brockville, 6 p.m. Prescott, 6 p.m. And rounding out to the eastern border of Ontario, Cornwall at 7 p.m. You can see the trend there. It's interesting, I've actually asked the archivist to pull up some information about the history of meetings just to see where it went. The city clerk would be doing black flips here if he knew that a lot of our old records that are at the archives don't actually have meeting times on the minutes. So they happened, but we don't know when they happened. But the archivist has told me that for the most part, newspaper articles and everything else, it would seem that evening meeting was standard until the 1950s, when it varied a little bit. Mayor Jack Boff, I think if I'm getting the pronunciation, even campaigned on the issue in 1955. And there was an article actually in the Intelligencer at that time, and he had actually advertised and said, and this is what he said, "Will you enjoy the privilege of attending council meetings in the evening and know what is going on, or will it be left to a small committee to be held in the afternoon when the working man cannot take time off?" Interesting. Obviously, that was before streaming and all the videos that we have here. You know, it's often been asked, well, you bring it up, you must have a problem with your schedule. I would say that my time here for the last 8 consecutive years would say otherwise, that I don't have that issue. What I'm angling at the end of the day is accessibility. And for example, tonight, and yes, the public gallery has diminished a little bit, but more and more we're seeing public engagement that want to be present, want to watch council working on behalf of them. And even through those deputations where we present awards to not only staff, but to community people. We have some students that have been here as Mayor of the Week. And in fact, I participated in that program back in 1991, and here I sit at the table. So their future may actually have them here. But I say all that to say is it's hard for people to get off work, quite frankly. And we're putting a lot of pressure on people to say, well, if you want to show up for a deputation, you better be here. If you want to celebrate a family member getting an award or something like that, you better get here. And, you know, that's just not reasonable. And, you know, we talk about accessibility in terms of around this place. And last term, there was a lot of talk about how do we make it more inclusive. Well, if you're taking out a segment of the population because of time of day and can't get off work, you're limiting. And with this council time in particular, and going back to, I think the 1967, it's been 4 o'clock, save and except for 2015, I had brought in a motion which passed, and we got it to 5 o'clock, but that only lasted a year, and then back we were till 4 o'clock. This is simply about trying to make things more accessible, more inclusive, and I realize with government that it doesn't change or pivot on the dime. And so by going to 5 o'clock, well, it's just a small increment. I think it is moving it in the right direction. Hopefully we can sustain it if it's approved, but I would certainly appreciate consideration of my colleagues. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Thompson had his hand up first.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. I will say you're consistent over my years of experience, because he's right. He's brought this up 3 times. He's done very well. He's been the best speech he's given yet is tonight, and I thank him for that. But yet, over my years of being a councillor, sitting here, you know, our gallery gets full if it's a controversial issue, And no more is that settled, and the gallery's emptied. Just like tonight, we had some presentations, they were here for it, and they're gone. I see personally, over the years, really never been an issue with people getting to council. Granted, there's always the odd opportunity where they can't be here. But I'm sure we could put it at any time of the day, and we're going to have a problem with somebody, whether it's 7 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, but we're always going to have an issue with somebody here. But over the years, I never heard anybody mention to me that they wanted this council meeting to start at a later time. So I, myself, would like to see it stay at 4 o'clock. It's a good time. Our staff is here. If we move it, granted, staff is our staff, and if we ask them to stay till 10 o'clock at night, they got to stay till 10 o'clock at night. But, you know, our staff is here. By prolonging them another hour, an hour and a half to be here, to me, doesn't make any sense. We bring them the end of their shift, they're coming into work here, they give them their explanations. And you talk about accessibility, yeah, it's always, accessibility is always an issue. I chair the accessibility, and you know, when we look at it, would it be better? Well, that's hypothetically a question we're going to ask forever and ever, because if we change it to 5, is 5 going to be proper? So we go with 5 for 4 or 5 years, and then Councillor Carr brings it back up again. We moved to 6 o'clock maybe, but I'm just kidding them a little bit there, though. But I would just like to voice my opinion that by moving it, I don't see any real value in it. People get to our council meetings, 4 o'clock is a good time. We meet at floor, 4 o'clock. Most of us then are home for evening meal at 6 or 6:30 or 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at the latest. So I'm not going to vote for the motion. Thank you.
And I believe, go to Councillor Kelly, you had your hand up, or Councillor? Also first, and I got it on the list, I thought, okay.
All right, thank you, Chair. So it's an interesting motion. I think that the desire of the motion is to address the accessibility, and that if people are working, they might not be able to get here after work because it's 4 o'clock. But most people work till 5 or 5:30. So if the issue that we're trying to solve is that working people can't come to the meetings, I would argue that 5 doesn't go far enough. So I would propose a friendly amendment that we go all the way to 7 p.m.
Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Chatton, okay, let's discuss that motion then.
Thank you. So the reason I would like to go to 7 p.m., if we're going to talk about moving the times at all, is that 7 p.m. provides people the time to get off work, go home, have dinner, and show up at the council meeting fully prepared. I think that that would improve accessibility, whereas I'm not sure that 5 o'clock, even if it is designed to be sort of a marginal gains increase in terms of getting us to the right number, I don't think that's really going to accomplish it. So I would like to go all the way to 7 or leave it as it is. Thank you.
Can I just ask you a question on that? So would you still be okay that in-camera started at 3?
Well, no, I would think that in-camera would start proportionally before the meeting. So we might start at 6 o'clock or 6:30 for in-camera.
Okay. Councillor Chatton.
It's on the amendment. So I would like to speak to that amendment. I am one of the people around this horseshoe that is directly affected by our 4 p.m. start. When we have in-camera meetings, already we have been in camera at 2 o'clock p.m. I have had to take time off work in order to be here. My particular shift starts at 7:30 in the morning. It ends at 3:30. The on-paper shift is 8 o'clock in the morning until 4 p.m. I bring dress with me to my job so that I can dress there and hurry here in order to be able to attend these meetings. It can be very difficult to do. I have 2 children at home. I also have another job on top of that. To be able to see them sit down and have dinner with my family does mean a lot to me. It is something that I am willing to sacrifice in order to do the job that I've been elected to do. So I will always be here for meetings, regardless of whatever time that they are set at. However, a 7 o'clock p.m. start time would facilitate a lot, very, very much would facilitate my situation to be able to be here and representing the city that elected me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other on the amendment? Councillor Kelly, then Councillor Millette. On the amendment? No, I'm talking about discussion on the amendment. We're discussing the amendment. You want to discuss it? Yeah. Okay, Councillor Carr.
Thank you. Well, congratulations to Councillor Alsop for being bold. I have no issue with 7 p.m. either. Quite frankly, the 5 p.m. and my thought process here was in the past, getting an incremental change is better than no change. Hence the reason why I say is that a government doesn't necessarily pivot, and this being the third rail. But two things, you know, city staff, for example, always comes up and has come up before. But this is a different world that we live in today than in the past. My first term here in 2000, when you looked at city staff all huddled in the corner in those church pews that used to be there, nobody had a laptop. So they were sitting there with a kind of glazed look on their face as we drone on about these things here today. But if you look now, is most are working. They're answering emails, they're responding to stuff. Sometimes they're actually responding to inquiries that we're making here. And so it's a little different world that we live in that the productivity continues. And we also live in a day and age where there's flexible work arrangements. And I also want to just talk on what Councillor Chatton mentioned about her other career and impacts. In the past, if you got up and said that in this place, it would be very quickly responded to, well, you knew what you were getting into when you signed up. And that's an old school way of thinking. So, you know, we've got to change the way we think here. It shouldn't exclude people because of your schedule. So my schedule doesn't work, therefore I can't be involved. And if we want to be inclusive, we have to make sure that we make it reasonable. You look at all those other municipalities from the Toronto border to Cornwall, they all have the time to accommodate people who typically work during the day. And I know there's going to be exceptions to that, but it's designed for a reason. And whether you're have to punch a clock and be somewhere else, or you have a business and you have to make sure that it's operating, there are sacrifices that have to be made. But we're not here for the income, and so we all have to subsidize our way, you know, some way, somehow, and so we make a living doing other things, and we all do around this table. And so, you know, I applaud Councillor Alsop for that amendment. I would support it. I think it's a little bold, but if it passes, then fantastic. And that's the other thing too, is the in-camera portion, which we've talked to. Some municipalities that start at 5:30 or 6 o'clock have their in-camera meeting after open session. There's nothing that says it has to be done before. We typically do, but that does back up an afternoon. You know, and in my personal circumstances, I have to stick handle and negotiate my schedule to get where I am, and I'm fortunate enough to have that little bit of flexibility, but I'm not naive to think that flexibility could disappear because I answer to other people. And so, but yet I still want to serve, and with the passions that we have here, and that's the reason why I wanted to have this debate here today, was to get this out of the way, but to make sure that we're working in a way that accommodates everybody. So I'll certainly support the amendment. Thank you very much.
Councillor Kelly?
Thank you. Mayor, this is good conversation tonight. This is democracy at its finest. It's really nice to hear the different opinions. So, after reading Councillor Carr coming up with the motion, and you know, when I think of things in 3 and successful things, I think of Toy Story 3, Mission Impossible 3, and then we get the movement to 7 o'clock. So some thoughts on this. It's time for a wake-up call. We had the worst turnout at the polls in municipal elections in 7 weeks. 7 weeks ago, since 1982, when George Zaguris was the mayor of Belleville. The worst turnout in the province. We saw that provincially in June. Just over 40% got out and voted and elected a government that I think had 3 or 4 million people out of the 17 million or 20 million that could vote. So there seems to be an issue there that people aren't engaged with elections. And I don't buy this crap that, oh, there was a federal election, provincial election, municipal election, all within 12 or 18 months. as part of our, with Canada, to go and vote. Not everybody has that right or privilege. So then I'm thinking about the 4 o'clock. It's 21 Mondays. 21 Mondays a year. So then I think, who's involved? And we had the history lesson of the 401 corridor tonight. And Councillor Carr referred to Kingston, 7 o'clock start. 30% turnout last election. He referred to Quinte West. They had conversations last week of moving their meetings up. They had 29% turnout. Councillor Carr referred to Brockville, 7 p.m. start. They came in at 34% last election, just 7 weeks ago. Belleville, with the 4 o'clock start, came in at 39%. So I was looking at it on the weekend thinking, you know, because Councillor Carr is right, and we've had this discussion. Why aren't people engaged? Why aren't they getting out? So I did a deep dive from Stats Canada. Biggest group that votes in Canada, age 65 to 74, has the highest turnout. So I matched that up to Belleville's municipal election, and there it was. Fact. So I look at the demographics, 18 to 44. Lowest turnout for voting. Matches right up with Belleville. This is from Stats Canada. Reasons why the 18 to 44-year-old group don't get out and vote. Everyday life and health reasons. The kids going to soccer or hockey or dance, they're working. They're too busy. They're not engaged. So the demographics, 18 to 44, is just kind of tuned out because they're doing some other stuff. So then I thought to myself, if we go to 5 and now 7's on the table, what else is affected? So, across Ontario, many local media outlets lack the resources to cover hometown politics, making it difficult for people in their hometown to be informed on what's happening at City Hall. And I can tell you this, from someone in the media, this city is blessed. We have Starboard Communications here tonight. Quinte Broadcasting is here tonight. The Intel is watching right now, real time, on YouTube. Your TV is here. Council goes 3 times a week. We're live right now on your TV, and it airs twice throughout the rest of the week. City Twitter account. 12,400 followers with tweets continuous throughout council. How are we doing for Facebook with the City of Belleville? I checked today, we're at 12,000 plus. We all see the updates on our social media. Instagram, new to the city, is at about 1,500. I spoke to Mark Coyle today, who looks after our IT. I said, Mark, how's our YouTube working, our city channel? How are we engaged with our community? 790 subscribers. That's really good. We have 17 people watching me speak right now on real time on YouTube. 17. I disagree with those that feel a 5 or a 7 o'clock meeting is going to have more engagement in the 4th floor here, in the gallery. I don't believe that. We just heard from a high school kid that was the mayor of the month, or mayor of the week. He was here last week. I think his name was Isaiah. And he said, I wrote it down. I thought, that kid's on to something. He said, education, civic pride, politics, Rotary Club. He took pride in, they learned about their community. So I jotted a little note to myself. Should there be stronger ties with education and civic politics? We have students, Councillor Carr, in high school and elementary, learning about Canada and our provinces. Maybe there's something here with just taking the note from that high school kid. Maybe it's time education focuses on their municipality and what their hometown community does. So I don't buy the argument that we go to 5 or we go to 7, the gallery's going to be packed and there's more engagement, because it's already happening. We heard tonight about 1955 when there was black and white televisions, and then I heard 1960 or 69 or 70 being, that's 50, 60 years ago. In 2016, one of the council meetings on YouTube, I looked on the weekend, had 8 views. 8 views. We have on average 200 plus, like throughout the course of the week. 100 people tune in. Our IT, our social media presence is doing a fantastic job, and that's how we build relationships. Trust me. And the final thing, the Intelligencer, and I'll go back to our media friends. We have partnerships with them. The Intel doesn't do it at home anymore. They hope to have stories by 6 or 7 o'clock. They do on average 5 to 6 stories a week on City Council. Quinte Broadcasting, Starboard, they're always doing stuff. There's not a councillor at this table that doesn't leave here at 8:30 or 9 and get home and runs to Quinte or Quinte News to see what somebody said about them. These reporters have to do clips from all the councillors and make a news story. The Intel has to have their deadline is 6 o'clock, 6:30 the latest, to get the Barrie. If we want to, as a city, have coverage. So there's multiple players. It's not just City Hall councillors. I'll leave it at that. Everybody that supports us, IT, and our media friends, very important. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Councillor Millette?
Well, thank you, and Councillor Kelly covered an awful lot of what I was going to say, and especially issues regarding media coverage, and it's important. I can tell you, as a guy who used to sit at that table, 4 o'clock didn't mean anything. If a meeting dragged till 9 o'clock, you had a deadline to hit. We had the responsibility to get those stories on the street for the next morning's paper. That was when we had a press in our own building. Forget about today. But it's a valid point. Staff resources in newsrooms. We can't expect newsrooms that are always being cut back to have a staffer work at night and on into the, let's face it, we could go, and we have gone here 4 or 5 hours in a session. And then they have to go back and report. But I'm far be it from me to start the woe is the poor journalist campaign, because as we all know, and as I long learned, nobody feels sorry for a journalist anymore. So, but my point is in opposing either 4 p.m. or 7 p.m. And I did this last term, and again, I congratulate Paul Carr for keep pushing that rock up the hill. We have, as we can see here, 2, 4, 6. On some evenings, we have 8 to 10 staff members at these meetings, sitting here for as long as we drone on. And you can hear them in their heads saying, "Oh, for God's sake, shut up, Millette. I want to go home sometime." Okay, wind that down to 7 p.m. You want to tack on an in-camera session at the end, after we've sat here from 7 till 9 or 10 p.m., and then some senior staff are expected to be here. Oh, well, we're going to have the in-camera session following council. Oh, good, that ought to bring us to midnight. These are people that have been in this building working on our behalf since 8 a.m. Every second Monday, you're going to have staff pulling 10, 12-hour, 14-hour shifts. They don't get OT. Well, they're handsomely compensated compared to the people around this bin, but and I say that lightly. But I'm sorry, as Councillor Kelly said, we're doing everything we can. In an electronic age right now, the access to this place has never been greater. Bums in those seats in that chamber are exactly what they are. We saw it today, and perfect example. They will find a way to get here. They will find a way to get here for a special presentation if their loved ones being recognized for 30 years service. It matters not a whit to the average person and the people who put us here what hardships we might have, what work schedules we might have. I am not going to agree with Councillor Carr that this is old school thinking. I think we all knew what we signed up for. I don't think that's old school thinking whatsoever. And right up there with non-sympathy for journalists is non-sympathy for politicians, folks. We'll get here, we'll do the business on behalf of the people who put us here, whatever the time. But I will not vote in favor of having city staff start their days at 8 a.m. or 8:30 a.m. and wind up staggering home at 11, 12 o'clock at night and have to be up and right back in this place at 8 a.m. the next morning. So I'm sorry, I can't vote for this.
Okay. I guess we're voting on this. Yep. So we vote on the amending motion first. All in favor of 7 o'clock start, the amending motion? No, you vote on the amending first. The clerk will call the names out. It's alphabetically from where we stopped last week, will be the process.
Through the chair to council, this is on the amendment, so this is the 7 p.m. start. Councillor Carr?
Yes.
Councillor Chatton?
Yes.
Councillor Enright Miller?
No.
Councillor Kelly?
No.
Councillor Thompson? Sorry, my apologies. Councillor Millette?
No.
Councillor Thompson? No. Councillor Alsop?
Yes.
Councillor Brown?
Yes.
Mayor Ellis?
So I vote, I guess I'm voting no.
Motion fails.
Okay, so we'll vote on the original motion now. Councillor Carr?
Yes, thank you. Just under procedural bylaw, I get to speak last.
Yep, you get to
on-
speak last.
Thank you. I'm not going to belabor this. Obviously, long meetings are difficult. I would just say that at the end of the day, how does other politicians do it? How does other politicians in other places do it? Working long meetings, longer than this, and continue to function. You watch Parliament, and our mayor was there in that role and would have long days and long evenings.
24 hours one night.
But it somehow a politician at that level can seem to do just fine. The other thing I just want to say is that I wonder what the media does in all these other communities. I wonder how their story gets out. But yet I can Google and read about what's happening in Pickering and Cornwall and Brockville and all the rest of it. So if it was a cry that there was suddenly no media coverage for municipal government, I assure you that municipal governments would pivot and change. We've talked about staff and they're all working away there. I see keyboards still clicking, and we live in a world of flexibility. Long gone are the days where you sit here idle, not working, expect to show up the next day. We leave it to the CEO to figure out how that works. What we haven't talked about is us around the table. Now, I did hear Councillor Chatton mention her circumstances. I've talked about mine. I've heard I want to get home for supper. I know that somebody has an early morning, so it's difficult. And so and that's why I proposed at 5 o'clock to look for a compromise, to look for something reasonable in order to get to somewhere where it fits for everybody. And that's what inclusivity is all about. We talked about this last term. We were doing cartwheels suggesting that we need to do all these things to get other people to run. But did we do anything? Did we propose a new idea? No, not at all. And so here we are. And so if we want change to happen, we have to start somewhere. And this is simply about making a change. And if an hour, now that we're talking about 5 p.m., is going to rock your world to not be able to handle this job, then what did you sign up for? Is how I put it the other way. So, I don't want to belabor this, and it's gone on a little too long, but nonetheless, I think it's important if we're going to move to an inclusive environment for everybody down the road who can run, including the working man and woman who's trying to make ends meet. Thank you.
Okay, call the vote on the original motion.
I'll do a recorded vote, please. Request.
Councillor Chatton,
Yes.
Councillor Enright Miller,
No.
Councillor Kelly,
No.
Councillor Millet,
Nay.
Councillor Thompson,
No.
Councillor Alsop,
Yes.
Councillor Brown,
Yes.
Councillor Carr,
Yes.
Mayor Ellis.
You know, in 8 years, I don't think I broke one tie, and tonight I'm breaking two, so I say no.
Motion fails.
Okay, notice of motions, seeing none. I need a bylaw, confirmatory bylaw resolution that, yes, Councillor Chapman?
Sorry, thank you, Chair. I do have a notice of motion.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
In the spirit of truth and reconciliation, I would like to put forward a motion to include a land acknowledgement at the beginning of all of our public council and committee meetings for the year 2023 going forward.
You don't need a motion for that, we're already planning it, so it's gonna
Okay,
start the next meeting.
beautiful. Thank
Okay,
you so
thank
much.
We'll save the time on that. So, confirmatory bylaw, the bylaw number 2022-181, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its, yes, Councillor Thompson?
I've got a couple of announcements if I may first.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Just two quick announcements. I want to pass on that one of our fellow retailers that's been here for many, many years, his father also, Bert Lloyd Lewis, passed away. His wake was today, his funeral is tomorrow. Just want to let everybody know. I dealt with Lloyd when I was downtown 50 years ago on the DVIA, along with Terry Barrett and that, and Bob Leslie. And the other, I would like to say thank you for the mayor, staff, and fellow councillors and the citizens of Belleville for all their condolences and thoughts on the passing of my son-in-law last Wednesday afternoon at 6:30 of a sudden heart attack, and the love that went out to my family. My wife, Grace, will be remembered forever. The flowers were beautiful, and I thank you very much for your kindness during this difficult time of year and with Christmas coming up. So thank you very much, everybody.
I'm sorry to hear that, Councillor Thompson, and all our council thoughts are with you. Sorry, any other announcements? Seeing that, we'll go to confirmatory bylaw, that bylaw number 2022-181, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on December 12th, 2022, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 12th day of December 2022. Moved by Councillor Alsop and Councillor Chatton. All in favor? Carried. Motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Enright Miller, Councillor Millet. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.